This video is about you getting rich, and nothing is worse than taking advice from someone about getting rich who isn't actually rich. I'm about to give you the #1 piece of advice in just 10 minutes that can do that consistently. In fact, I wish I had learned this a lot sooner and viewed it this way, because if I had, I would have stopped fucking up so much. See, the good news for you is I'm a slow learner. Over the 7 years I've been in business, if I had just fixed this one little thing, I'd probably be worth hundreds of millions of dollars right now. So if you can just learn this one rule today, you will make so much more faster, because this one rule is the key rule for everything in life, not just business. So here's exactly how you get rich. So for some reason, people get deeply attached about money, and it's deeply tied to their egos and emotions. So for example, if I'm learning to play an instrument, like I played piano when I was younger, or I'm learning to play sports, we don't really get our egos attached to that. Like if you suck at it, it's not a big deal. Nobody really cares. No one feels, or you don't feel like anyone's gonna judge you. With money, people are constantly thinking about what are other people gonna think of me. The irony is that no one's ever thinking about you, but they're always thinking that. And the reason that matters is because what you think other people think of you is what you think of yourself. And then with money, there's actual risk versus sports or piano, because nothing really happens, right? With money, there's actually some risk, but it's not really the risk of what you might lose. It's the risk that you're not who you think you say you are, or it's not who you actually say you are to other people. The rubber is gonna hit the road, and you're like, oh, I'm not actually as good as that as I actually say to people I am, or I think I am. And a lot of people just can't possibly imagine hurting their fragile ego. So if you just apply this rule that I'm about to share to you to making money, you are gonna make tons of it, absolute tons of it. Look, making money is really no different than any other skill. In junior high school, I started playing football, and within 6 years, I was team captain of my football team. And during those years, I put hours and hours and hours, year in and year out, going from complete beginner to a decent athlete. And that helped me play Division I football. I did lots of weight training, lots of running, lots of agility drills. I learned all the moves. I watched tons of film. I mean, there's so much time and energy that I put into being an excellent football player. So I grew up at Utah, and they had a program called the Accelerated Reader Programs, ARR. And what happened is when you read books, you could take a quiz and get points. And at the end of the year, if you had the most points, you would get a reward. Now, the reward really wasn't that great, but because I got something out of it, I remember I would just read and read and read and read and read. And because I read so many books, I got really good at reading really fast, and I was able to take these quizzes and get a lot of points. Now I'm a really good reader and I enjoy reading, but it's because I put in all those reps when I was younger. Okay, so the way getting better at a skill might look like is right here. So let's say when I was starting at football, I was really bad. I started down here at 0, and I just showed up to practice, so that automatically put me there. And then I started watching film, and it took me here. And then I started lifting weights, and it took me here. And over time, as you're taking these steps, you're getting better and better until up here, let's say, is where a Division I athlete can go. And over time, I was able to actually get there. There's not a lot of risk though. Like, a lot of people are not gonna necessarily judge you on how good you are at sports or playing an instrument, but in business, people tie a lot of their emotions and feelings to their self-worth around how much money they can make. So in sports or reading, for example, it's not hard to leave your comfort zone because you don't really care. There's not a lot of risk. In business, you do care, because if you fail, you can't tolerate it, and then you start feeling bad about yourself. So you take some actual risks, but have success, but then you plateau. So when I started business, for example, it actually took me 2 years to even start business. So for the first 2 years, I'm down here, 2 years, okay? And the reason I didn't take any risk is because I didn't have any money. I was so scared it wasn't gonna work. Like, this is all the money I had. I didn't want to invest it. And I finally took a little bit of risk, and I was able to grow to $10,000 a month in a week. And then I started to use my door-to-door sales in my business. So that got me to here. And then I started learning ads. That got me to here. And then I started learning team building. It got me to here. And so each time I plateaued, I would take a little bit more risk to grow. But usually it's a little bit scary for people. The benefit I had is that I was in a service-based business, and so it didn't actually take any money, or there wasn't really any inherent risk to starting the business, because you start the business with just a cell phone. So I had my cell phone right here, and I would just message people on Instagram and so far and so forth. And I was able to set up a lot of sales that way without a lot of risk, because it was just my cell phone. I was living at my parents. It didn't really have any effect on me trying to start that business. So if we go back to this diagram right here, what happens eventually is, let's say here, you're making $100,000 a year. People start to be happy enough where they don't want to take any more risks. So they're like, you know what? I've learned enough. I'm just going to stop right here. But to get to the next level, you have to continue to take risk, but people don't want to. In business, or really in anything in life, to get better, you have to continue to take risks, because when you take that risk, right, to get to the next level, maybe you fail, maybe you look stupid, maybe it costs you a ton of money. And so because now you're making $100,000 a month, let's say, you don't want to risk anything. Like, you want to hold on to that little acorn you have. But to get better in this realm and to make more money, you have to continue to take risks. So the point I'm trying to make is, you get comfortable and you need to start doing something harder, but instead you stay where you're at because you don't want to risk your ego and you don't want to hurt yourself, but you must stack up more risk, and that's how you level up. So in fact, the guys that got me over this hump, and I realized I was playing small, was Alex Hormozi, Alex Becker, and then Sam Ovens. And the way I was able to see is they were actually pretty much in the same industry as me. They were in the internet marketing world, in the information world. And I saw Alex Hormozi go from gym launch to kind of the private equity model, right? Which is what he does now with acquisition. Like, they buy companies and they build them up and they sell them. And then I saw Becker get into into tech, right, with Hyros. And then I saw Sam Ovens get into tech with school. And, you know, you look at that and go, oh, but like that's a new thing. I don't really know how to do it. And, you know, there's a lot of risk and it's going to take a lot of startup capital and so on and so forth. And so for me, if you guys don't know my journey, I went 0 to $1 million a month in 18 months. And then about 2 years after that, I was doing 25 million a year. So let's say hypothetically, this is $1 million a month right here. And then I grew a little bit more, but then I couldn't get past this level. And I was like, why can't I get past this level? I knew marketing, I knew sales, I knew ads, I knew team building, I knew training, I knew hiring, I knew SOPs, I knew a ton of things. And I'd taken a lot of risks to get there. But at this point, I had to take more risks to get to a new level and learn new things, right? Like there was nothing else to really learn in this industry. And so even though I was trying really hard, I was basically just doing the same things over and over again. And once I saw Alex Hormozi, Alex Becker, and Sam Ovens go into these different industries, I said, oh my gosh, like that's the key. Like I have to do something different. And so after seeing those individuals go into it, I started interviewing a bunch of people who had sold their companies from 40 million to 4 billion. Okay, so a couple billionaires, a lot of multimillionaires, centimillionaires, etc. And I started interviewing them on what they did. And what I saw is most people went into private equity. Okay, so we'll just do this: private equity, tech, or hedge funds. Okay, so I started to realize, hey, I got to start going that direction. So step number one is I started buying up companies, right? So I actually own, you know, 5 or 6 companies now. Tech, I started my own tech company and I've bought 2 companies. So I started my tech company and I bought 2 companies. And then hedge funds, like I'm trying to actually build my own hedge fund. And the reason is because this is where the big money is. And it's not stuff I know, but to get to the next level, I have to start over again. You have to be willing to look like the idiot, so to speak, so that you can get to the next level. So let's use an example that actually will fit you. So let's say you're brand new, you're starting out, you're not in my position, and you're just trying to get off the ground. Let's say you go on Fiverr or Upwork. And I'm not saying this is a service you would do, but let's just say you were doing video editing services. Video editing. So once you're doing video editing, let's say hypothetically you were making, you know, $100,000 a year. So we'll just put 100K. Then you get a team who starts editing. And now you're doing 300K a year. And then we'll come down here so it's easier to draw. And then after that, you get the team, you start running ads, right? So you start running ads to your video editing offer. And now you're doing 500K. And then from running ads to making an AI software that edits, okay? So each level, there's risk. There's risk here, there's risk here, there's risk here. But for you to get to the next level, you have to keep doing it. And because people stop and they get comfortable, that's exactly why they stop making money. This is why they stop excelling in sports. This is why they stop excelling in relationships, because to get to the next level, you have to take on more inherent risk. So at each stage, you're gonna feel like a dumbass, but that is the pain necessary for growth. And so if you do this consciously and use effort, you will continue to make more money. And that's exactly what I've seen in those examples. Alex Hormozi went from gym launch to private equity. He learned new skills, right? Alex Becker went from the information marketing industry to the tech industry. He learned new skills. Sam Ovens went from the information marketing industry to the tech industry. He learned new skills. And so instead of being afraid of learning new skills and looking stupid, you want to continue to embrace that and continue to climb and grow so you can actually get to the next level. Staying exactly where you're at might feel comfortable, but it's actually exactly why you're staying exactly where you're at. So if you take this rule seriously, you'll make more money than you know what to do with. This is the mindset it takes to become super rich. But if you want to see the strategy I followed that made me over 115 million, you can just click here.